I enjoyed the bait and switch of the terrible Resident Evil anniversary thing where they're like, and don't worry, like we'll be celebrating the anniversary of Resident Evil like later on. And it was like, boo, this sucks. And then, they're sitting on an actual Resident Evil announcement. And that was cool. That was fun.
That was actually, speaking of, that was one of the things that embargo was up, especially by the time this comes out. But Janet and I actually had the same time to see a theater presentation of Resident Evil 9, Requiem, and Onimusha, Way of the Sword. And I think Janet was doing her best to not be scared during the presentation.
It was really hard.
I gave my seat up to her colleague Kelsey, who she could have been in solidarity with being scared, but then I had a better view of the screen for Kelsey's perspective, so I was like, hey, just take my seat and I'll sit next to Janet. But instead, Janet was forced to be like, no, I'm having a normal time while I watch this.
I think I put on a really brave face because I was
sorry,
like,
why are you not having a normal time?
It's just scary. It's scary.
We got to watch a.
They made it feel scary, and also it's the pressure of like, well, I don't want to look like a punk ass bitch in front of all these people. So it's like,
it turns out they were filming parts of these. They put out a socials bit that.
Oh,
I'm sure that was buried in
everywhere.
Like,
yeah,
the NDA that we didn't read and just signed.
I know. Sorry, Haley, I didn't read the NDA. Just signed it.
Like how Natalie became the face of E3 for.
The Joyous Gamer. Yeah.
Yes.
So I didn't want to be like the punk ass gamer. Like that's not fun.
They won't even let you play Splitgate 2 if you're seen.
Yeah,
if
not
you're caught on film
real enough.
Being a punk ass bitch.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was just like a little just dramatized. It's like, okay, it's really quiet. It's like, what's here? It's another door, and then a dimly lit lamp. Ooh, it's like just classic, Resident Evil stuff. But yeah, I mean, I'm like, I was once they kind of revealed like their big like, and this is the horrors to be seen. I'm like, okay, this is less scary now because now we're just playing a game again, kind of. Which I guess is maybe one of the challenges of Resident Evil and making it compelling throughout. I think once you like kind of see like one of the big bads or one of the like antagonistic kind of characters or monsters, you're like, okay, cool. Well, now it's just a game of like convenience more than a game of fear and tension a little bit. But Patrick, you're the horror boy.
Well, I think Resident Evil 9 is very funny. Janet caught me chuckling because someone from Capcom comes up to introduce the game, and some folks did get to play. I think this demo we did not. We just watched sort of an edited gameplay excerpt that was like 15 minutes long or so. But they said like we're going back to our roots of combining like intense horror with intense action. I was like, that was also the pitch on Resident Evil 7, a game that wasn't all that long ago. Resident Evil 7 was like very consciously, it takes place like largely in a house and the surrounding property, in which they really downplay, at least in the first 2/3 of the game or first half of the game, like the gunplay. Like you have a gun, but like it really is sort of a survival, escape, run, exploration game, which is really heavily enhanced if you played it in VR. I played RE7 start to finish in a PSVR headset, and it was fucking awesome. I was very upset that Resident Evil 8 Village did not have VR support until months after release, because the PSVR 2 came out later than Village did. But I just chuckled. I was like, well, we just went through that. Like, you just did this. Now, granted,
well, it's funny. It's like same difference, but they actually didn't say. At least I don't think they did. Maybe they did, and maybe they said both. I don't remember them saying they're returning to their roots. They said they're doing something they've never done before.
Which is just not true.
Which is also not true. Neither is true, but just to be like,
no, that's
just
fair.
For what they think they're doing is.
I appreciate that because the jump from 7 to 8 is very similar to the jump from Resident Evil 1 to 2. And I love Resident Evil 2, and I really liked Resident Evil 8 Village. But where you end up with, I know that there's Resident Evil 1, 2, and there were games in between. But if you look at Resident Evil 1 and then Resident Evil 6, like 6, which is an abomination of a video game. Like, I deeply dislike 6. I know it has its defenders, but I think they are deranged and should like seek help. And Capcom thankfully seem to mostly feel that way. But Resident Evil 8 was on the path towards doing something similar. It probably would have been a better game because the team that's been behind this like sort of trilogy of Resident Evil games is really talented and really interesting. But inevitably with horror, all horror tends towards action. Like that is true in like horror cinema. Like horror as a genre, like if you are sticking within a franchise, characters, familiar tropes, villains, you tend towards action because it's not scary anymore. So then you have to increase the adrenaline a different way. And like the easy way to do that is action. Like I like watching like all like 12, 13 Friday the 13th movies, but I'm not afraid of Jason Voorhees anymore. So you have to find a way to make it interesting in a different way, which is why slasher movies tend to be around gimmicks of how the victims are killed. It's like, well, we can't scare you with the villain anymore, so we're going to surprise you with like how they are dismembered. And it works, but it's a different approach. And Resident Evil has found itself falling into less of a trap as much as just this is what happens when you revisit stuff like this over and over again. So to say I'm full circle, it is actually kind of surprising and a reinvention to look at the third, like if this is a conclusion of a trilogy of approaches, like of what Resident Evil 7 started, to resist the impulse to become more action-oriented is showing like a shocking amount of restraint on Capcom's part, and maybe just an identification of this is what we've done in the past, we're going to do something differently. Because what we saw in the demo, and I have no idea if this is indicative of the entire game, they did... Janet, do you remember how they described the main character of Grace? Do you remember the words they used? Did you write it down?
No, I didn't. They mentioned her being scared. That was like a big...
Like they didn't use the word like meek, but they used like something like meek adjacent to just be like, well, to make sure that we have sort of a scared little girl that like isn't confident in the way like a Resident Evil character might be, like that's what's going to make this one different. But they also
particularly they use the term for like gameplay or like their sort of like ethos, at least allegedly at this point in the marketing cycle. Addicting fear. But they did put in a line like she is a trained FBI agent, so she will be able to use a gun. Like, they're like, don't worry, like you'll get a gun eventually. Like don't you worry. And they're saying the game is about like conquering fear. So I think like the arc is supposed to be that like as the game gets less scary and more action oriented as it goes along, that will go along the character arc of Grace Ashcroft, I think is the name of the main character. And so what you see in the demo is a lot of it starts in first person. We can say now like this is a game where you can be in first person or third person. You can change it any time. It lists first person as recommended, and then I thought it was really strange. Like it says first person recommended, and then it says third person coward. Like I think that was like a strange way to list that. No, they did not do that, but I do think the third person.
I was like, wait, what?
It's the coward's path.
I was thinking, did I miss that part? I feel like I would have
I
noticed.
I was like, oh, I didn't get the laugh. It just made everyone seem that was actually how they listed it. No,
well, games have had that sort of thing in the past. Is the thing, right? Like the different like difficulty modes.
Yes.
And what was it?
Well, like
One
the
of the
90s shooters in
things,
particular made you
Yes.
feel bad for choosing easier difficulty modes. But it's here. It's fine if that's your preference. But I think when it says recommended, I don't think I think they're being pretty serious. Like I think it's a concession to folks that want third person. Yes,
Sorry,
Jamie?
I looked at my notes. You're just gonna have to believe me because I have really ugly handwriting, so you're not gonna know. But Patrick, we are the same because literally my notes say stalking monster again, and then it says third person for cowards. Is actually what I
No
wrote.
way.
That's actually
And
what
I didn't say this. I
No,
swear.
you did not say this.
Damn.
Also, mind you, these are notes like I know I read them now, but they're primarily notes like for me to just refer to stuff. It's so I write like very colloquially in ways that like I wouldn't. Maybe I would make that joke in an article, but like
surprised
it's just like quick hit stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, third person for cowards. That's what I read.
Incredible.
While cowering in your seat.
Yeah, like that's me. I was thinking I might
Third
do that.
person
But I'm
for
not gonna
me.
lie. It's a lot of those it's a little like the camera angle. I feel like sometimes when there's these games where they're like, it can be first person or third person, but it's clearly a first person made game. The third person camera is like it looking kind of ugly. It's like you play Fallout
Yeah.
third person. Feels kind of weird. Like it's like, it doesn't feel like I'm just playing a third person game.
Or
It
Avowed,
feels like
right? Like a
yes.
Vow, it's like third person.
Yeah.
It does not feel good.
So I don't know. I am a coward, but maybe I won't do the third person just for it being like kind of weird.
I can imagine switching between. There is a like for you, Janet. Like if like like hey, I want to play this game, but also if you're like trying to mitigate like the tension, like I can imagine during like chase sequences or things like that, switching to third person, and then back when like hey, we're exploring a space and like switching into first person. But I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, the best parts of the game.
Well, yeah, exactly. But a lot of RE9 is really interesting, and I hope it's indicative of what they're trying to do with the whole game. But it is you're in this old hotel that is connected to the main character's mother was murdered in that hotel decades back. I don't know if it takes place in Raccoon City or not. There's a lot of references to that in the trailer. It was at SGF, but it wasn't clear to me whether like this hotel is also in Raccoon City. But it's a lot of a significant amount of the demo, maybe not in time, but in function, is you looking around a room and seeing if a light switch works. And that could be pulling on a lamp switch. It could be like something on the wall. It could be getting a fuse and like using that to like a lot of this game seems to be will the lights turn on or not. And it's hard to convey. This won't come across. I don't know if they're going to put up this video or not. Elements of what we saw were in like the trailer at SGF, but it's hard to convey how dark the game is. Like it is oppressively, blindingly dark at times, in which you can barely see what is in front of you. And it seems like maybe this is the section of the game, or maybe it's going to be something holistic, but something they really emphasized in this reveal that I thought was very effective was one of the survival elements of the game is going to be literally what you can and cannot see. And we are going to play with light and like what you can use to enhance your ability to see in the light as sort of a core idea of what we're playing with. And if that's true, that sounds really interesting and exciting because that is pulling from Amnesia, like a lot of like indie horror that like plays like is like lowers the stakes on combat and things of that nature. And so I was really encouraged because I got another. I don't think they're gonna make another first person Resident Evil. I feel like this is it. Like they're gonna complete this trilogy and then we're done. But I have been a huge fan of the first person Resident Evils. PSVR 2 is out. They were not talking or acknowledging the idea of VR, but I'm desperately hoping that either it will support natively PSVR 2 or it's a simul release on PC. I'm hoping there'll be like mod support that allows that to happen because I would love to finish off this approach to Resident Evil with a VR headset. But I don't know. Did you find it interesting, Janet? I mean, I know I'm an RE head and like I'm a sucker for stuff like this, but did it work for you at all?
Yeah, I'm newer to Resident Evil. My first one ever that I fully finished was 7. Then I did 8.
Did you like
I played
7?
Yeah, 8? I love 7.
Okay.
Yeah. I love 7. I think it falls apart when they leave the house.
Yep.
I think Resident Evil consistently is like, we made an awesome game, and then we kept making the game. Yes. You didn't need to do that, baby. You could have just cut it off right there, and we would have had a nice time. Village, I thought was weaker than 7, like it undebatably to me, but I still think had some really like cool stuff going on. The stuff in the house was great. The stuff in the with House of Benedito, I think is the name.
Yeah.
Was like really good. Everyone knows about that baby. It's like, but again, then they're like, and now you're in a mech. I'm like, okay, well, I mean, sure. Like, I'm not mad, but I'm not like that intrigued by it. But I don't know. I also don't find like factory settings to be like that scary. They're like, it's a badly made machine. It's like, I don't know. And I played, growing up, I saw, was it 1 a lot? Like, because they keep remaking 1 and they need to remake it again because it's still like too old for me. But I watched a lot of that. I didn't really play much of it because it was a little too scary to me as a kid. And I like keep starting 4. It seems totally cool, but like I just never play past like that little opening. But what's funny is people never really talk past that opening. And granted, part of that's spoilers for content, but I kind of feel like I almost know what that game is. Because all people talk about is that little opening. So I'm like, yeah, you shoot some medallions. We had a fun time. You say, where's everyone going? Bingo. And yeah, like I was there, you know?
Okay, I think
9.
We're really down talking one of the greatest like survival action games or action games of all time. But
take it up. take it up with our peers, because that's how I hear people talk about it. Okay, if they maybe they should talk about more than just that one opening sequence. I don't know. Maybe they don't have
Harry
anything
hates
more.
finding out what the streets are saying every week.
The streets are not saying this.
I'm sad to report the streets are not doing
They are.
RE4
They
justice.
are.
Well, here's the thing with RE4's greatness, and I'm not saying it's not a great game. It's just I get a lot of tell, not a lot of show from people. They just kind of say like,
Well,
"Oh yeah, we all know it's great,"
It's
and they
also
don't really
because
unpack
it's a
it anymore.
generational it's one of those like I think RE4 remains like playing the remake is still a good game, but I think a lot of you are correctly keying on something important, which is that a lot of your peers are talking about like, well, I was around when it came out on the GameCube and it revolutionized video games, and then they're transposing that onto how you should react to it into a modern context, which is there's basically no way for you to play Resident Evil 4, which like originated a lot of the modern action horror genre, and appreciate what it was doing, because everyone did it afterwards and did it better than Resident Evil 4 in many ways because it was doing stuff at the origin point. So you're not wrong, I think, for feeling that way. And I do think you are actually also correct that Village is like the best sequence of the game, and there's still a lot of good game after, but that little sequence encapsulates everything that it does well, and then it just keeps doing that in different contexts for.
Oh, and of course I played RE2 remake, which was like incredible. So
See, we're good.
yeah, so I'm missing a couple. Oh, and I played that weird co-op one,
6?
but the good one. No, RE2 Revelations 2.
Oh, Revelation.
Oh, the Revelations games are fun. Those are.
I really
quirky and
loved
weird, but
playing
they're good.
that.
Yeah.
I thought it's definitely like, from a critical standpoint, I wouldn't like rate it insanely high, but from like a personal enjoyment standpoint, I'm like, this is a must play co-op game. Like I think it was really fun. I played with Michael Huber over from Easy Allies, who like loves that game. And we had a blast and a half. I thought that game was very fun. So yeah, missing a couple pieces of Resident Evil, but have more than one might expect. I think the RE9, it seems cool. I'm sure it'll be a great game. My beef with it is that it did not, from that trailer alone, I don't really see what I have to be excited about. It was very much a sort of classic wandering around a bespoke area. What's more fearful is what you're picturing. Mm-hmm. You see a statue. It's kind of scary. Will it be a puzzle later? Mm-hmm. Will something jump out at me as I approach it? So I think they definitely are still delivering, great atmosphere, fun environmental item gathering and combining things. But the sort of their big like piece in the demo trailer they showed us was like the hulking monster that's there. Now, whether or not that's the monster, just a monster in the beginning, and then it's almost like oh, you thought that was the game? Now we have like the bit, and it kind of unfolds because they're probably going to, move around areas and kind of like sections of the place, and they often do change locations. But casual stalker monster, like, isn't that inherently interesting? Like, I don't think it was as interesting as like Mr. X is very like down on like continuous pursuit. I actually don't find him that scary, oddly enough, just because he like walks so slow. It's like, and he's just a man, so like, he's not that scary to me.
Mr. X
Versus, I found
very tall man. He's very
but he's got that
big.
stupid hat on, I think, is really what kind of makes it less scary. Versus the bakers, I was
No, I mean, the
like
bakers were fucked up, yeah.
the baker, and also it's also kind of like timing of when those games came out, right? Because like, and I only played a little bit of the one that had Mr. X in it, because the following was so well done in the bakers, where like I have a distinct memory of like playing that game with my friend and like running into a bathroom and hiding behind a door, like I stood where when you open the door, I'd be blocked. And he opened the bathroom, and I was like, he's not going to know I'm behind this door. And he immediately looked behind the door, and I was like, oh my God. Versus like in the trailer we saw, Patrick, kind of demo slice.
You clocked this pretty quick.
Yes.
You were calling it out at a certain point as we were watching the demo.
One of the big things that would happen is that this monster would appear, and they're, it's slowly walking towards you, and you're running away. And then you run into like a room, and then you just stand in the room. But the first time they did, they ain't crouch. There was no sense of like, oh my God, is this going to be enough? Like, it was just like you just stood in the room and waited. And I feel like that, again, this is an early specific slice, but also it's the slice you showed me. I think sometimes, it's important to acknowledge that like this is just a tiny bit of like a much larger game. This was hands off, all of those things. But like, I think sometimes we're too quick to be congratulatory based on the assumption of delivering quality later. And as much as I believe that they're going to deliver some quality later, I have to analyze what's in front of me. And what's in front of me didn't like necessarily seem that compelling. That doesn't mean they don't have interesting things to say. I just feel like they didn't really say much. And I didn't get this. And I think with them having that pitch of this is addicting fear, I wanted to like be sold more on that. Even if I didn't buy it, I wanted that to be like an angle. I feel like they didn't have an angle here other than like this woman's scared, and you know she's scared because she like is breathing really heavily, where it's like, oh my God, like it's like, okay, cool. And I did add to it, but it's like, that's not enough for me to stand and clap and say like, wow, RE9 is about to like really tear it up. And it didn't feel as identity rich too. I think Village, for its eventual faults, like they really create an identity with that big tall lady. And you know, granted, sure, we can talk about, okay, well, like the sexual aspect of it, but like that was an interesting cast. It was an interesting setting. It was an interesting angle. And here, I don't really feel like I have anything to latch onto other than the laurels that the team has, which is enough for me to show up. I will definitely be showing up. But yeah, and then they had that thing at the end too, Patrick, that we have to talk about. When the text came up, and it said, this is merely the prelude to our darkest symphony.
Yes. Yes, the best.
Okay, what? Also, those unironically shots of the fact that Requiem and then the 9 is in the queue, I think that's really cute and smart. That does make me stand up and clap. I was like, you're really smart. This is really good.
Whenever that happened, like the meeting where it happened, like everyone just started clapping. It was like, oh, okay, meeting over. Like we're done. Like Requiem is the name. Yeah, and I worry a little bit about. I was a little shocked that it had I love Alien Isolation. That's also a game that goes on, IMO like way too long. But that is also a sort of a binary pass-fail, like stealth game in which hide, if caught, die. And you can get bit by this, like, giant creature and, stab yourself with a health pen in order to keep going. But in general, it's sort of like a pass-fail sort of binary approach. And that is even towards ways of hiding, right? Like, so a lot of Alien Isolation, which is the game I thought of the most while watching this little excerpt, was like hiding in a locker, like hiding in a different, like hiding in like you're in a kitchen, you can open a drawer, or a cabinet and hide in there. And here, there's nothing like that. You're not hiding in like a million places. It's a very short section. Now, granted, we didn't play the full demo, which I think this is taken from. They were constantly sort of, when the game stuff was about to happen, like you need to go find a key, it would cross dissolve to like the next section, like skip right past that and go to the next really intense moment. So we're not getting the actual ebb and flow of what's happening. We're skipping a lot of the tension building because they're just going to the really high octane moments so they can rotate more people out of this theater. But something you clocked was like, when that big monster is coming after you, just find the nearest door and shut it. And every time, they do a good job of like, ooh, it might be above you. Ooh, it might be in the walls. But at no point did it feel dynamic, where it's like, oh, it's actually going to push through that door or push through that wall and make you feel, the closing the door makes you briefly safe, but it's not actually a get out of jail free card. And what we found over and over, again, at least in the demo, was just shut that. This is I cannot underscore like how big and hulking and intimidating. Like it's a really cool creature design, and it's terrifying the first time it's revealed. There's nothing about that monster that suggests it is not going to just press the fuck on that door and that door is going to wilt. Like it is just going to get out of the way. And instead, the monster's like, can't find the girl. Better go munch on some flesh around the corner, which is kind of what happens. And it's a little deflating, and I'm hoping that that's not. It's hard to get a sense of like how that feels without, like you or I actually having played it, and like, oh, maybe that feels a little bit different when we're actually the person. Because you also got the sense in the demo they showed that I think this character walks faster than this. Like it felt like they were pushing the analog stick half forward to like emphasize the terror of it all and how close the creature was.
They also like hilariously, which I totally agree with them making this decision because they're trying to like show off their game and remind you of like proximity and also the design of the creature, which if you're always running from it, you're inherently not going to be looking at it as much. Yeah. So they would often just like gratuitously turn around to be like, is scary, and then they keep walking forward. But it's like, okay, like that makes sense in the context of what they're showing, but it is a little funny of like when you're playing it, you're not going to be like, I mean, sometimes you might turn around to see where it is, but like that's how you get got. Like I'm just going to head to that door, that one room.
I got to put that fuse in. Open that gate.
Yeah. Super easy peasy. I did enjoy because I like it's like one of my favorite things in games that like Resident Evil. I don't know if they're the originator, but they definitely popularized it or they have it attributed to them, which they interact with an item and then they start rotating it, and I was like, that's good gaming. That's good gaming.
But they took time to rotate like a toolbox.
As they should. I was like, yeah. So, yeah.
We should take a quick break and then discuss some other stuff we saw, and then hit some emails.